Let's bring in our guest to talk about what we were just seeing from the defendant on the stand. Joining us now from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, criminal defense attorney Michael Gottlieb. Michael, thank you so much for being with us on this Friday. We're replaying some of that testimony from the defendant when he took the stand yesterday. What did you make of his testimony? That was on direct that we were replaying.
Well, number one, it's always dangerous for a defendant to testify. You know, juries get perceptions of the defendant from the moment they walk into the courtroom. Number two, he was testifying against the advice of his counsel. But he also seems, I think, somewhat sympathetic, somewhat pathetic. He's trying for some kind of loose insanity defense, saying that he was insane at the time. You know, this is a tough case. This is an individual who, you know, was born in Ukraine, subjected to all kinds of horrors, adopted at the age of 14, 15, and then murdered his adoptive parents, which is, you know, incredibly sympathetic to a jury on the side of the parents. So I think he's taking a calculated risk. The fact that he's breaking down may inure to his benefit to get a lesser included verdict instead of the murder in the first degree.
Michael, when you talk about that insanity situation, we did hear him on the stand saying to the prosecutor in this case that I was temporarily insane, even when, not only when I was killing my parents, but also during the police interviews, that I was not in my right mind. Now, the judge did tell the jury to disregard that, because this is not a situation of I'm pleading guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. So disregard any insanity reference. What did you make of that?
So you know, there is a concept that you can have a jury pardon. So the jury may disregard it, they may not. You can't unring a bell once it's been rung. Some jurors are going to stick to the black letter of the law and follow what the judge tells them. Others are going to say, look, he clearly exhibited signs of insanity. They can determine on their own. You know, that's why we don't invade the province of the jurors when they deliberate. They can determine on their own whether or not that's a sufficient mitigating factor in terms of his guilt or not, his temporary insanity. Most states have a defense of temporary insanity, which is not a bar to prosecution, but you could be found not guilty by reason of insanity and typically committed to a Department of Children and Families you could be sentenced to the rest of your life in confinement. Think of John Hinckley, who was, you know, incarcerated mentally. But the judge telling him to ignore it, who knows what the jury's going to do in this case. Some will, some won't.
And talking about things to ignore, the prosecutor was very clear with the jury when she delivered her closing argument, saying, I am instructing you, the jury, the law instructs you to not take into account his past, what he was wanting to talk about on the stand, about what happened between him and his mother after his mother died, how he was treated. She was very clear with them, you are not supposed to take that into account. What did you think of that approach?
Well, I think it's interesting, and what it means is, to me, having tried hundreds of cases, it means that rung a bell with the prosecutor, right? She's acutely aware of how significant that testimony may be, that jurors have sympathy. We're all human beings. And, you know, despite the fact that this is a heinous, atrocious crime, jurors have sympathy for somebody who is so pathetic. And here you have an individual crying, saying, I was insane, saying I had a horrible childhood. These aren't my parents. So, you know, I think it still weighs in the minds of some jurors, and despite everything we do when we pick a jury to try to get them to focus on the evidence as the judge instructs them, there are going to be jurors who are going to run rogue and who are going to make a decision based on other factors that they see, sympathy being one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Michael. Okay, we're going to squeeze in a break.